Hello everyone, welcome back to MediPlacebo. In today's video, I'll be covering about the development and maturation of the bone. We will also be covering the bone remodeling process, which is important for the healing of the bone. And lastly, we'll be talking about the clinical significance related to bone. So, starting with the development and maturation. During the embryonic period, the bone is formed from the fibrous membrane and the hyaline cartilage. So, these two structures are important for forming the upcoming ossifying bone in the adult human. The process of ossification starts from the 6th week after fertilization, and these bones are mesodermal in origin, out of which here we have the development of the axial skeleton from the paraxial mesoderm and the appendicular skeleton, that is from the lateral plate mesoderm. The axial skeleton is present in the center of your body, and the appendicular skeleton relates to all the structure which are articulating with the axial skeleton and are present away from the central line. So here we can take a look that we have the paraxial mesoderm and the lateral plate mesoderm. The paraxial mesoderm is present closer to the neural tube, whereas the lateral plate mesoderm is present closer to the intermediate mesoderm, which will further form the kidneys in our adult human. So now let us discuss about the ossification process. There are two types of ossification which are occurring in our body, which is the endochondral ossification and the intramembranous ossification. The intramembranous ossification is a type of ossification in which the bone is formed within the membrane, that is, we have the fibrous membrane in which the development of the bone takes place. As we have discussed earlier, that the fibrous membrane is one of the components which is responsible for developing into the bone along with the hyaline cartilage, and the hyaline cartilage will form the endochondral ossification, that is, the cartilaginous cells would get developed into the bones. Now, the process of endochondral ossification is a indirect mesenchymal method by which it forms the bone, which means that the mesenchymal cells would differentiate into the chondrocytes, and these will later differentiate into the bony tissue. And in case of the intramembranous ossification, it is termed as the direct way of forming the bone with the help of the mesenchymal cells. So here the mesenchymal cells itself will form the osteoblast cell, and these osteoblast cells will further undergo the differentiation to form the compact bone and the spongy bone, which we will discuss in detail in discussing the intramembranous ossification. Now, within the intramembranous ossification, we have the bone developing within the membrane. The common example which we encounter in case of the intramembranous ossification are the cranial bones and the clavicle. The cranial bones are mostly a type of flat bones which are flat on either side, and we have the clavicle, which is the only long bone which is placed horizontally in our body. Now, starting with the process of the intramembranous ossification, as we have discussed earlier, that the mesenchymal cells will differentiate into the osteoblast. These osteoblast cells would aggregate in the center and form a ossification center, and the osteoblast cells would secrete the new bony matrix. Since these are the building cells of the bone, they will produce the osteoid layer, which is the demineralized part of the bony matrix. And here in the initial stage, the osteoid layer is quite flexible and is soft, and would later differentiate and will be hardened. Now, after that, we have the presence of the osteoblast cells. Now, in the next stage, again the mesenchymal cells would differentiate into the osteoblast cells and form a peripheral boundary in which we have the osteoblast cells and the bony matrix, which was secreted by the osteoblast cells itself. Now in the bony matrix, the osteoblast cells further differentiate into the cells known as the osteocyte cells, and these osteocyte cells are a type of the osteoblast cells which are developing in the bony matrix. So we can say that osteocytes are nothing but a type of osteoblasts, but these are present within the bony matrix and are involved in the maintenance of the bony matrix tissue. Now these osteoid will harden itself, and it will do it in a trabeculated fashion, which can be seen here. So we have the presence of the trabecules, that is the presence of cavities within the bone. So the reason for the bone to grow in a trabeculated fashion is because of the presence of the blood vessels. Now these blood vessels are supplying the bony tissue to perform their function along with the mesenchymal cells. Now, as we have seen earlier that the mesenchymal cells form the outer boundary by the osteoblast cells, they will continue to replicate and will form the periosteum, which is also formed by the osteoblast layer. And so we also say that the osteoblast cells are present in the region of the periosteum as well as in the region of the endosteum. That is, in the region of the endosteum, the osteoblast cells will differentiate into the osteocyte. Further, these mesenchymal cell would thicken itself and form the fibrous periosteum. Then we have the osteoblast cells, which is forming the periosteum region, that is the outer boundary of the bone, and beneath it we have the presence of the compact bone. Now, the compact bone is devoid of the cavities which are present in case of the spongy bone or the trabeculated bone. Further, during the development of the bone, the spongy bone would also provide some space for the development of the red bone marrow, as we have seen in the region of the epiphysis. So here we can take a look that in the region of the epiphysis, as we discussed in the previous video, we have the presence of the red bone marrow, which is present in the trabeculated bone. Along with it, we have the lacunae, which are the air-filled spaces. So here I have summarized the process of the intramembranous ossification, in which firstly the mesenchymal stem cells will differentiate into the osteoblast cells. These osteoblast cells would then aggregate and form the ossification center. Now, the osteoblast in the ossification center would secrete the osteoid, which is the demineralized part of the organic matrix, and further we have the peripheral mesenchymal cell, which would differentiate again into the osteoblast layer and would form an outer boundary, and we have the presence of the osteoid on the inner side. And due to the presence of the osteoid on the inner side, we also have some osteoblasts which are trapped within the osteoid layer, and these osteoblast cells are later known as the osteocyte cells. So then we have the process of calcification and hardening of the bone, where the osteoid layer calcifies and hardens itself. Next, the mesenchyme will differentiate into the periosteum with the help of the osteoblast cells, and beneath the periosteum lies the compact bone. The compact bone forms the outer edges of the soft bones, and inner to the compact bone lies the spongy bone, which has the important function of the hematopoiesis since it has the presence of the red bone marrow. So now let us move towards the endochondral ossification. Now, as we have discussed previously that the endochondral ossification is a type of indirect method of the mesenchymal cells developing into the bones. Now, as we know that the mesenchymal cells are the type of stem cells which can differentiate into any cell of our body. For example, we have the macrophages, the adipocytes, the fibroblasts, the osteoclast or any other cell can be formed by the mesenchymal cells. Now, here we are concerned with respect to the chondroblast. The mesenchymal stem cells will differentiate into the chondroblast, and these chondroblasts will further form the cartilage. Now, these cartilage will form a template or a outer boundary of the developing bone, and it looks somewhat similar to the developing bone. Now, the process of endochondral ossification occurs mostly in the region of bones of the limbs, that is in case of the appendicular skeleton, and in case of the axial skeleton we have the presence of the vertebrae and the ribs which are forming the chest wall. And lastly, the endochondral ossification can also be seen in the base of the skull. So the cartilaginous cells will form a boundary, and these cartilaginous cells are mostly made out of the hyaline cartilage. Further, the ossification process of these cartilaginous cells takes place, and it initiates from the region of the shaft of the bone, since the region of the epiphysis of the bones are involved in the lengthening of the bones. So in case the epiphysis region initiates the process of ossification, then there would be no more space to provide the lengthening of the bone. So the ossification process always starts from the shaft of the bone itself. Further, when the ossification of the diaphysis region or the shaft of the bone takes place completely, we have the ossification of the epiphysis region, and hence it is said that the primary ossification center is mostly formed in the shaft of the bone, whereas the secondary ossification center, which is developing later, is formed in the region of the epiphysis. Further, the process of ossification takes place completely, and in the region of the epiphysis what we have is the compact bone on the outer side and the spongy bone on the inner side. Similarly, in case of the shaft of the bone, we have the compact bone on the outer side And on the inner side, we have the presence of the medullary cavity. Here is the detailed process. We have the perichondrium, which is the outer cartilaginous layer formed by the hyaline cartilage. The process of calcification of the diaphysis region starts initially. Then we have the process of, during the process of ossification, we have the formation of primary ossification center takes place, and on the outer side, the periosteum region is well developed, which is the chondroblast cell ossifying into the bony membrane. And on the epiphyseal region, we have the presence of the spongy bone. Also, we can note that we have the presence of the nutrient artery. So, the nutrient artery is the one which enters our bone with the help of the primary ossification center and is a key artery during the growth and development of the bone. Further, in the calcification, we can note that we have the presence of the periosteum, which would cover the compact bone, and on the inner side, we have the presence of the endosteum. As we know that the endosteum is the inner layer, and in the upper region, the process of the calcification of matrix takes place. That is, the matrix starts to ossify, and on the epiphyseal region, still we have the uncalcified matrix, which means that the process of ossification has not yet started, even when the primary ossification center and the nutrient artery has developed in the bone. On the inner side of the shaft of the region, we have the development of the medullary cavity, which would provide the space for the blood vessels to provide nutrition. And further, we have the process of calcification of the bone, in which we have the formation of the secondary ossification center, as it can be noticed that the arteries and the veins are also being present in the region of the secondary ossification center. And lastly, we have the formation of the articular cartilage, and it is the only region which is devoid of the periosteum, as we have discussed in the previous video. And the spongy bone is present on the inner side of the epiphyseal region of the bone, and also the most important structure which marks the growth and development of the bone was the epiphyseal plate. So here we have the presence of the epiphyseal plate, which marks the growth and development of the bone. Now that we have understood the process of ossification, I want to mention the two stages of bone maturity. We have the woven bone, and it is a type of bone which is mostly seen in the example of intramembranous ossification, since we have seen the presence of the trabeculae, which can be also be seen in the woven bone. Now, the woven bone is an example of immature bone, which is present during the fetal development and the process of bone healing. So, I'll be explaining why it is present in the bone healing process very soon. And being immature, it is flexible than the lamellar bone. The lamellar bone are a type of mature bone which is present in the adult human. And we also have clinical significance related to the stages of bone maturity. That is, we have the example of Paget's disease. The Paget's disease, in which the lamellar bone, which should be present in an adult human, forms the woven bone in the adult. So the lamellar bone can be further classified into two types, that is the inner part, the trabecular bone, the spongy bone, the trabecular bone also known as the spongy bone, and the outer bone, that is the cortical bone, or also known as the compact bone. So due to it, the lamellar bone is much more stronger as compared to the woven bone, which is present in the fetal stage of development. We can also note that in the lamellar bone, we have the presence of the concentric circles. Now, these concentric circles are known as the lamellae, and in the center of each lamellae lies the Haversian canal, and these Haversian canal contain branches of the arteries supplying the bone, and the collection of these lamellas is also known as the osteon. So now I'll be discussing about the bone remodeling process. So in the bone remodeling process, we have the old or the brittle bone which is being degraded and being replaced by the new tissue, and it is a type of continuous process since we have some minor injuries throughout our lifetime, and it is regulated by the two major cells, which are the osteoblast cells and the osteoclast cells. The function of the osteoclast is to crumple or to degrade the bone, and the function of the blast is to build the bone. Now, before teaching the process of the bone remodeling, I want to emphasize on these terms which I would be using frequently. So firstly we have the rank, then we have the rank L, the OPG, and lastly the MCSF. The rank stands for receptor activator of nuclear kappa beta. The rank L stands for the receptor activator of nuclear kappa beta ligand. the OPG stands for osteoprotegerin and the MCF stands for macrophage colony stimulating factor. So the rank receptors are present on the monocyte cells and these are under the influence of the rank L, that is the rank ligand, which is secreted by the osteoblast cells, and the process is regulated by the osteoprotegerin, which is also in turn secreted by the osteoblast cells. And then we have the MCSF, which induces the monocyte to merge with the macrophage and form the osteoclast cell, which will initiate the process of bone resorption. So now let us take a look at the mechanism by which it takes place. Here we have the osteoblast cells, and these osteoblast cells will release the rank L, that is the rank ligand, and these rank ligand would bind to the rank receptors which are present on the monocytes. So here we have the monocytes. Now the function of the osteoblast cell is to create some minor injuries to the bony tissue, which is drawn here in yellow color. And we can also note that there is presence of osteocyte, which is present between the bony matrix. Now these rank L ligand would bind to the rank receptors present on the monocyte, and which can be seen here, and it will lead to the aggregation of the monocytes along with the macrophage and form the osteoclast cell. Here we have the injuries which occur either through some mechanical stress or is created by the osteoblast cells itself. Now the function of the osteoclast cell is to degrade the bony tissue. So they will degrade the bony tissue so as to remove the minor injuries which are present on the bone, and further, while engulfing the bony tissue, it will also engulf the osteocyte present in between the bony matrix, and after degrading the bony tissue along with the osteocyte, it will undergo the physiological process, which is the apoptosis, where the osteoclast cell along with the osteocyte would die and they will leave a space which is known as the Hauschup's lacunae. Further, the osteoblast cells would get active and perform their function of deposition of new bony tissue, that is the osteoid layer, and during this process, some osteoblast cells would get trapped into the bony tissue and will later be known as the osteocytes. So these are the osteocytes. So it was the process of bone remodeling where the first process is degradation, then we have the formation, and then we have the mineralization process in which the bone strengthens and calcifies. So to regulate the process, we also have another molecule, that is the OPG, that is the osteoprotegerin. So these osteoprotegerin molecules are also secreted by the osteoblast cells, and they will bind to the rank L and will inhibit the binding of the rank L ligand to the rank receptors present on the monocyte surface. So this will in turn inhibit the process of bone remodeling, and these work under the influence of the hormones, that is the parathormone secreted by the parathyroid gland, and these parathormone receptors are present on the osteoblast cells. So when the parathormone levels are high, the osteoblast cells would initiate the process of bone remodeling, and when the bony tissue get degraded, the minerals which are present in the osteoid, that is the degraded bony tissue, gets transferred into the blood vessels and move as the calcium and the phosphate. So hence the parathormone increases the level of calcium in the blood. Here the osteoclast cells would secrete the enzyme known as the collagenase so as to degrade the osteoid layer in the bone, and due to the degradation, it would release the minerals which are present in the bony tissue, and it also secretes the HCl, which would break down the Ca3PO4, that is the hydroxyapatite, and would release it in the bloodstream as Ca2+, and PO4 3 minus. And further, the osteoclast cells perform the function of phagocytosis, that is, it would engulf the osteocyte and later it will undergo the process of the apoptosis, which is a physiological process in which the cell dies, or we can say that it commits suicide. Due to the excavation of the osteoclast cells in the bony tissue, it would leave a space known as the Howship's lacunae, which can be seen here, and further the osteoblast cells would start the deposition of the osteoid, which is the collagen and the calcium phosphate, which is the hydroxyapatite. And later these osteoblast cells and later some of the osteoblast cells get entrapped in the bony tissue matrix and would form later the osteocyte. So here we can see the formation of osteocytes in the bony matrix. So under the influence of the calcitonin, which is secreted by the parafollicular cells, if the level of calcitonin increases in the blood, it would lead to the decreased bone resorption process. Now let's discuss a law which is based upon the bone remodeling process, that is the Wolff's law. The Wolff's law states that the bone that bear a lot of weight remodel at a higher rate. So if a bone undergo injuries, then there are high chances that it would remodel itself again and would repair itself. And lastly, we'll be discussing about the clinical significance related to bones. So regarding the clinical significance, we have the 4 diseases which I have mentioned here, and the list does not stop here, but these are some of the most high yield clinicals related to the bone. So in case of the osteoporosis, it causes the fragility of the bone, and it mostly occurs due to the age related process and is also common in postmenopausal women. So these are some of the causes or the etiologies concerning the osteoporosis. Then we have the osteomalacia and the rickets. So the osteomalacia tends to occur in both the adult as well as the children, whereas the rickets only occurs in case of children. And the rickets occurs due to the lack of fusion in the epiphyseal region, that is, the epiphyseal plates do not fuse, and so it can lead to the bone deformities, that is, the bending of the bones. And similarly, in case of the osteomalacia, which occurs in case of both adults and children, we have the common symptom, that is bone pain and tenderness, that is the softening of the bone. And so we can also note that the softening of the bone is mentioned in the word itself, that is the term osteon refers to the bone and the malacia refers to the softening. So the next disease which we have is the Paget's disease. In the Paget's disease, the normal lamellar bone gets converted into the woven bone, which is weak as compared to the lamellar bone, and so we can say that it leads to the bone deformities and some skeletal disorders. And lastly, we have the fractures. So fracture could be any partial or complete breakdown of bone, which could be caused either due to the trauma or overuse, and could also be caused due to the diseases which we have discussed above and some other diseases that weaken the bone. So thank you for watching the video. If you like the video, please like, share and subscribe. And if you are new here, do consider subscribing to our channel since we post medical related content at MediPlacebo. And you can also follow us on Instagram at @MediPlacebo. Thank you.